Please join me in welcoming Rhett Buttle, President, Public-Private Strategies Institute, Angela Dingle, President and CEO, Women Impacting Public Policy, Todd McCracken, President and CEO, National Small Business Association, Justin G. Nelson, co-founder and president, National LGBTQ+ and Allied Chamber of Commerce, and Sarah White, co-founder and managing partner, Westover Taco.
Well, hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I think I'm on. There we go. Hello, everyone. It is so great to be with you all. We're obviously so amazing to have this amazing set of panelists. And I know you all have big personalities, but those big headshots that were behind you, I don't know if you saw them coming greater than life. But what we really wanted to do was have a conversation about small business owners, what they really need from AI, and obviously I'm so thrilled to be joined by not only a small business owner, but some amazing leaders, colleagues, and dare I say, very dear friends in the field. And so let's go ahead and hop in. And really, Sarah, I wanted to start with you as our resident small business owner on the panel. And just, first tell us about your business, as any good business owner would do, give us the pitch. But tell us a little bit about how you're actually experiencing AI in this moment and thinking about it and using it in a very practical way.
Absolutely, thank you, and thank you for having me today. So I have Westover Taco, which is just across the bridge, and it is my first restaurant, the first one that I own, though I've operated many, and we're the best Mexican food since you've had last time south of the border. Come see us. Thank you. But we like to be ahead of things. We like to be trying the next thing out and know what's coming around the corner. So we've been really interested in everything AI, like a lot of people. And one of the things that we found very exciting is something called Easy Vision. It watches our cameras for us. Nobody has time to sit and watch the cameras all day. I can't be there 24/7. And you'd think, oh, I don't know if I'd like that. I don't know if I'd like people watching me while I work. But we've got more of a game going with our staff of who can turn their tables the fastest and who greets their table the fastest. So you want quick drinks, you come in when they're behind. They will catch you to beat the other team. And it's just amazing to watch them really take to it and see that it's not a gotcha. It's not a way to get someone in trouble, but a way to make sure that we get better and get better every single day. And they've really taken to that. We use things like everybody else does. Can ChatGPT make me a coloring sheet or make me a social media schedule? We do the normal things like that. We also have Toast and Margin Edge, which have both recently put AI in. So if I want to report, I can just go in and tell it what I want instead of aggregating things for hours like we used to. So we're really enjoying it.
Angela, I wanted to come to you because you have a dual sort of experience. One, you run the amazing Women Impacting Public Policy, so you have the opportunity to represent so many amazing women small business owners who are government contractors, but you are and have been a small business owner yourself, and you're in this field. And so how do you think about it kind of wearing both of those hats, both sort of like in the aggregate as someone who is representing the voice of women small businesses, but also in the work that you do as a small business owner yourself?
Yeah, I think being dual-hatted really gives me an advantage. Not that my other colleagues in the nonprofit space don't have that as well, but for the very things that I talk to our members about, I experience them myself, right? So we need to adopt AI just like our business owners do, and I think that I can serve as an example. Like, I'll test it out. I'll show you how I'm doing it and see if you'll jump in behind me. Just having that experience has been really helpful.
Todd, one of the things I love to tease Todd about is Todd started as an intern at the National Small Business Association and has risen to become president and CEO, which is amazing. And so I think what's cool about that, Todd, is you have this long experience of the sort of memory with the Small Business Network. And so just kind of reflecting on your time with the NSBA network of small businesses, what's your sense of how they're sort of dealing with this moment, thinking about this transition, thinking about AI?
There's the mix, I think, of real excitement and also real uncertainty, because they're not sure what it's going to mean for their businesses. They're not sure if they're up for the challenge. They hear a lot of very positive things about the tools that AI can enable in their companies, but they also know it's enabling that in their competition, and they're worried about what that means and can they keep up. Because the thing you have to remember is something we've struggled with for a long time as representatives of small businesses. We're a membership organization, right? So we're always like, well, who are our members? And I remember years ago, my board was very concerned when they found out that our average member was like in their 50s. And they're like, well, how do I, when these people retire, we're not gonna have any members anymore. And so how do we get the young people in the door? And of course, what we found over the years and what is the realistic response is actually that's who small business owners are. The most successful people who start companies are middle-aged people. They've had a little bit of experience in the world and they go out and start a business. But those folks, when technology changes, often feel like they're not on the cutting edge of it. So they wind up turning to their staffs and other people to help them figure it out. But I think this is so significant that we may actually see a change in who those startup people are. I think we may actually see more successful younger entrepreneurs for the first time in the long history of business startup.
Yeah, I want to come back to that, Todd, 'cause it's really interesting because, as you know, we have an aging population and an aging workforce, and so it's something to be thinking about. Justin, I know your network is thinking about this. I was at your amazing conference in Las Vegas. In fact, I think we've stolen one of your speakers today. And so give us a sense of how the NGLCC network is thinking about this, what you're hearing from your folks.
Yeah, I think sort of to echo what Todd said, people want to know more about it. Some are really leaning in. I think the easiest way is we tell people, you've been doing this and you didn't know. How long have you had your iPhone? How long have you been talking to Siri? Those are certain things, even just your Google search. I mean, AI's been around. It just has been brought to the forefront. I think the real challenge here is people that think it's only one-dimensional. By that, I mean we have a $40+ million construction firm. They do very well. I was asking this business owner about their integration of AI, and his response was, "Oh yeah, I use it every day to help me write the emails." And I thought, well, that's great, but your competition's using it to do a lot more than write their emails. So sort of demystifying what the tool is, how different industries can utilize it differently. I love your story. I think is really something that we need to do a better job of as organizations, and entrepreneurs absolutely have to do it because, to your point, Todd, the competition is doing it. They're leaning in, and if businesses aren't going to get on the AI bandwagon, they will be left behind. So I think the fear is there, the need for more education and understanding, and storytelling. Seeing someone in my industry and how they've utilized it to either make me money or save me money is, the fire's here, and we've got to make sure we're responding to it.
Yeah, and this group up here collaboratively has been doing a lot of research, talking to small business owners and trying to understand how they're thinking about it. And we see a lot of business owners are experimenting with AI. They're kind of, in explorer mode. And so, Sarah, I wanted to hear from you, just given your perspective, how do you think, advice for people like us who are on stage or people not in certain policy, for business owners who are kind of in that explorer mode, how should we be thinking about sort of helping businesses sort of elevate to that next level and moving beyond just asking simple questions to ChatGPT or Siri, but really starting to think about it as a holistic part of their business? Or should we not be thinking that way?
No, I absolutely think that we should. I think it's very important. And to Justin's point, we've been using it for so long. Everybody's been using it and you just don't realize it. So getting that comfort level with people and saying, hey, you're just taking the next step. It's not a huge leap, it's the next step. But I found the most useful thing I think that I did when looking for AI solutions and trying to make sure that we were staying up with everything was I put it in my LinkedIn bio or whatever it was that we were looking for the next thing. Because people look through that stuff all the time, If you're a certain age, you're looking at Facebook, right? If you're under a certain age, you're probably on TikTok. But business people are on LinkedIn, and being there and saying exactly what you're looking for, exactly what you want. When I started working with the groups I'm working with, they reached out to me. I didn't reach out to them. They were looking for someone to beta test their stuff. I said I was open to it, and we made a collaboration. And I think that's what every business leader needs to be doing right now. Whatever it is you want, get it out there.
So there's the very practical side, and Justin, I want to hear more from you about ways you think that networks like yours can kind of help support small business owners in this transition. But Todd, I also wanted to ask you a little bit about policy. And so obviously we're sitting in DC, it's a government shutdown, it's we're just in such an interesting moment right now where it feels like there's not a lot of opportunity for cooperation, either across the aisle or however you want to describe it. But AI and innovation seems to be a place where everyone's willing to lean in, Democrats, Republicans. What's your sense of the public policy landscape? Is there anything that you're kind of excited about?
I think you're right. I think this is sort of a moment for potential bipartisanship, sort of uniquely so. I still think, though, we have sort of a lack of a consensus about what they need to do. And I think that's going to hold us back a little bit. And there's also still that federal-state divide. I mean, how much of this should we allow states to experiment around, and how much of this really should be left to a uniform set of policies at the federal level so that companies don't have to deal with a million different sets of regulations. But I think we can surmount those, and I think that there's a lot of interest in getting this right and making sure that we don't, on the one hand, don't unnecessarily burden the development of AI technologies, but they also think about, what are our obligations to employees whose employer is monitoring the cameras? I mean, is it just a matter of telling them? Is there something else we got to think about? I think as a country, we got to think about those things, think about them really carefully before things get too far down the field.
Angela, I want to hear from you about how the government contracting community is feeling in this moment, because small businesses are such a huge part of it. But before I do that, Justin, I wanted to circle back to the question I had, which is kind of focused on, networks like yours and Todd's and Angela's. One, how is AI helping you guys reimagine the way you serve your members? But where do you also see more opportunities to kind of help your, the bread and butter small businesses in this moment? And I know you do a lot of collaboration with corporations, and so are there public-private partnership opportunities? Where do you see that?
Yeah, great question. In fact, I always like to say, I mentioned it at dinner last night, nonprofit doesn't mean no profit. We run our organization like a business. So we want to know what's going to make us money, what's going to save us money, what's going to help us innovate, and what's going to keep us front of mind when people are looking at where they're going to invest. And that means both from a membership level, but also from a corporate stakeholder level. This is absolutely at our front door here, and there's such an opportunity with corporate partners that are really looking at how they can lean into this to not only expand what they're doing in market, but also how they can better prepare suppliers, which is sort of the business we're in, to help them do their operations more cost effectively. So the ecosystem is there. I mean, it benefits the small business, benefits the large business when the small business is utilizing everything they have at their disposal to be more effective, more cost effective, more profit centered, and it helps the large company that's giving them the tools to do that. So our ability to create win-win partnerships around education. I think the big thing here is, how are we teaching this? It's no longer a day-long or an hour and a half seminar. I mean, we've got to do this in snackable ways. And so I think there's a lot of space out there for us to be creative and find ways that take the learning to the individual. I'll use the restaurant industry as an example. The schedules that you all keep trying to get our restaurants to participate in any sort of programming is often difficult. So leaning into those other organizations you have relationships with, so we understand how they work and how we can best deliver content to different parties, different industries in a way that they're going to be able to understand it and on a timeline that they can commit to.
Angela, coming back to this, obviously we're in a government shutdown, so the time feels really uncertain, but it has been a really uncertain time for government contractors. And I think a lot of folks, even beyond DC, don't really understand how important small and medium-sized businesses are to the government contracting industry. But AI seems to present an opportunity maybe in this moment for a lot of people to reinvent their business. And so do you think government contractors are thinking about this in a specific way, those who are serving the government? Are you seeing any interesting models kind of pop up?
Yeah, they have been thinking about it, right? They started thinking about it before the shutdown. One of the concerns that I see in the federal marketplace is it's so regulated, there's so many compliance requirements. So you might have a business that says they want to start using AI to either help them produce their proposals or help them produce a deliverable, and then there's concern about, well, if I'm using that, we know that the federal government is using AI, will they be able to determine that I did that, and do I have any obligation to tell them that I've done that? The other thing is around privacy and security, right? We kind of all do business with one another. If I'm using it, am I releasing somebody else's secrets? Does that violate my non-compete or my non-disclosure? And how do I wrap my head around that? The conversation I've been having with them is that your staff is using it anyway, and we know that the government is using it to scan your proposals and look for keywords or scan your resumes that you've submitted or evaluate your pricing. So how do you now kind of think outside of the box and find creative ways to reduce the amount of time that your staff is doing repetitive things? And then when you start talking about innovation, as the government is shut down, the folks are tired of me saying, you've got to diversify your client portfolio, right? So if I was in a business that has been deemed, one of the 100 or so words that you're not supposed to do in the federal marketplace anymore. How do I use AI to innovate and pivot? And I say to women business owners and business owners all the time, we've been through this before, right? We just did this with COVID. And we know from the Impact of Women on Business, which is a report that we produce in partnership with Wells Fargo, that women business owners really relied heavily on technology. AI was a game changer for women to be able to get through that time. So how can we take this time now that the federal government is shut down and really think about innovative ways to deliver the products and services that we were already delivering? So not just email, not just repetitive things, but is there some new and creative way that I can do what I was doing, maybe not even in the federal market anymore? We're developing education around verticals, right? What does AI look like in the energy sector? What does it look like when we're talking about manufacturing or all of these others? And how do you integrate that across all of the work that you do?
So Angela is talking about the importance of pivoting and just, Sarah, I know with being a small business owner, so many things are coming at you all the time. And so, would love to just, hear your advice for people like us who are constantly, there's a whole infrastructure set up, federal government, nonprofits to help small business owners as we think about this transition. What are the things that grab your attention? Who are the people you're talking to as we think about this sort of, AI revolution? How do we help small business owners from your perspective sort of in this moment?
Well, the first thing that I like to point out is how many people, when you bought your last appliance, let's say you bought a toaster, could ask the toaster how to use it? Probably nobody. You can jump on ChatGPT and say, hey, this is what I do and this is what I need. How can you help me? It will teach you how to use it. And I just think that's so amazing. And that's great for any business, right? Go in there. I told it all about my business on day one, and it spits out cool ideas for me all the time that I don't expect. I'll want to write something for social media, or maybe it is as simple as an email. And today I can't think of what I want to say. And it says, oh, are you talking about the restaurant? Let me help you. And I don't even have any employees that helpful. So it's amazing. And teaching them to want to use it as well. So, I will never forget the first person who applied to the restaurant, and it said right at the bottom of it, would you like me to turn this into a longer description of why you should get this job? So you have to be careful with it too. You have to make sure that you're paying attention. And I think it's just training everybody around us, whether it's a business owner or a kid in high school getting their first job, to pay attention to what they're doing, check your facts, but don't be afraid to use it.
I'm that person who just got like a brand new weird electric stove and actually had to ask for some ChatGPT and YouTube help about how to figure it out recently, and also a very weird microwave. I want to come back to you all sort of as we close up, because we're getting close to time, and really just want to hear your kind of words of advice for the small business community. Before we do that, Todd, I wanted to ask you, you probably didn't hear it because you were back in the green room, but Teresa Carlson was talking about, one real highlight of the current administration has been, their focus on public-private partnerships, the way they think about commercialization. And I think some of that is true, but I do sometimes hear that a lot of that is focused on large business. And so I'm curious about how you feel, do you feel like small businesses have a seat in this sort of AI revolution moment? Do we need to be doing more? What does that look like? Where are there opportunities? We've all been working for decades to really raise the voice of small business.
Yeah, I definitely think small business needs a bigger seat at the table. I don't think collectively we're doing enough to represent the real needs of small business. And I think part of it is the conversation we're having now. Small companies themselves don't know what they don't know. They're not sure yet how they're going to use it, so they aren't driving their organizations in the directions that will ultimately benefit them in the policy space nearly as much as they should. So I think that's a key thing we all have to keep in mind and need to get further ahead of this. But the reality is, small companies are primarily going to be users of AI, not developers of AI. And we've got to think about how to help them make sure they are understanding all the opportunities in front of them.
And Justin, I know, NGLCC, I think, has done something really smart, which is, when there's opportunities to play at a federal level, you definitely have done that. And when there's not, you guys have gone state and local, and you were sharing a little backstage about, some of the testimony you've done at city council. Are you seeing at state and local level that state and local level governments are thinking about this, and are there opportunities there?
Yes, and maybe. I have real concerns there. Back to the comment that Todd made. I think the more erroneous we make it on small businesses, the more difficult it's going to be to adopt. Now, that doesn't mean there shouldn't be guardrails, but this is probably one where the one-size-fits-all or a federal solution is probably in the best interest, especially if you're a small business that may do business in multiple states. A number of our members do. And so I think we just, it's almost we're not going fast enough and we're going too fast. And finding out what are the guardrails we need in there from a policy perspective and what we don't need, because I think there's this desire to feed into the fears about AI and legislate based on what we actually don't know. And I think we're more apt at getting that in some states and municipalities. I'm not saying it's not there at the federal level. I sometimes get in trouble because I just sort of say what's on my mind. And I do have heartburn over octogenarians making AI policy. Now, I've been in DC for 30 years. I know that 20 and 30-somethings run the hill. So there is, maybe some cause for celebration there that maybe we will get a solution that looks like it should, bipartisan and so forth. But I think we really need to watch that, and I have grave concerns over too much legislative action at the state and local level.
We've got about 5 minutes left, and so I just want to make my way down and hear from each of you kind of, your sort of closing thoughts or part of the advice. One of the things that's interesting about what we tried to do today is, as you all know, today everyone who's here has been hand-selected, right? And so we have people who are running organizations, or they're government leaders, or they're working on public policy, or they're making investment decisions. And so we kind of have a captive audience, folks of here, who are really helping to shape the future for this community and for the future of AI. And so, Angela, what are your kind of thoughts? And then, Todd and Justin will go to you. And then, Sarah, because you're the small business owner on the panel, we'll let you take us home. But Angela, kick us off.
Yeah, I just think it's so important for small business owners to just kind of wrap their heads around the fact that AI is here. It's been around for a long time. And if you're not already adopting it, you're behind the curve. So it's really going to be important for us collectively. We talked last night about an ecosystem that then can create the use cases that will help them understand how AI works in their individual industries. We talked about having training and resources. There need to be some guardrails from a policy standpoint, but it can't be this scattered approach to policy, because that will make it too difficult for the small business owners. And even as we look at the efficiencies that a business might gain from using AI, even to the point that you might decide not to hire someone, I might not hire that marketing person because they're doing it for me. How can we collectively look and say, well, how can we put good back into the system? There's a report that talks about the societal impact of women businesses. So if you're going to adopt AI, how do you give back? How do you create, there's some state agencies that have some programs that are designed to take the benefit from those types of things and put them out into the community. And I think that's what we really need to be thinking about. I think we can lead as opposed to just kind of following. So have some input in what's happening from a policy standpoint, have some input into these programs, certainly develop the training and the resources and partnerships that are going to be important to our constituencies.
Todd?
I think from the small business owner perspective, I think the watchword for them is network, network, network. And I think that they can't rely on their own imaginations or the vendor that just happens to give them a call to decide how they're going to use AI. Then they get out there, and when they're networking, realize it's not just about finding customers or clients. It's about networking with peers and other businesses and finding out really in depth how they're using some of these tools. What are these tools? How can they fit in my business? Because the ones that sit on their own little, in enclosed space and get out into the world and learn these things are the businesses that are not going to live through this moment.
Justin?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, sort of back to the research that brought us all together, thanks to PayPal for making that possible, I think about those that are adopting, those that are active users, and those that you're calling the explorers. It's too wide of a gap. And the people in this room are responsible to work together, whether you're a funder, whether you're a corporation, whether you're an anchor institution or a policymaker. That gap is so wide, and if we really want to continue to see small businesses be the real economic engine of this economy, we need to lean in quick, and we need to be deploying education around this so that larger than should be percent that's only exploring actually moves from exploring to actively utilizing. So I think that's probably the advice I would give.
Sarah, take us home.
It's ironic. I was thinking a word that's just been in my head since we started talking about this subject, and everybody just touched on it without using it, and that's workforce development. And we have been talking about that a lot. I mean, it was pre-pandemic, of course, always important, but ever since then, and with government changes and things, everybody's trying to learn something new, maybe a new job, start a new career. And so that workforce development piece of making sure that people can learn not only about AI, but using AI to learn the next thing that they want to do. Finding that thing that's going to fit them perfectly and be their next career. And I know a lot of people, if you look at the research right now, are starting another career in their 40s, but there's also a group in their 60s that are starting something completely new. And that's a great opportunity to grab people and teach them more about AI, how they can put AI into whatever it is that they want to do, and also to use that to get into their next thing. How can I apply? Using a search that's as simple as, I won an award recently because I Googled what awards are open right now. And a friend of mine said, I'll put that in for you. So just asking it questions. I can't say that enough, but using it for training people in any direction that you can.
We literally just hit 0 on the clock. It's an omen that never happens. Please join me in thanking these 4 amazing panelists.